So we're now less than 3 weeks away from the Iowa caucuses. Speaking of president, people who want to be presidents. So it was no surprise that last night's debate on the Fox News channel, Newt Gingrich was the main target because he's the front runner now, right? All things GOP debate are fair game for my guest here today, CNN political analyst Roland Martin. Marking in, I think he has like 21 children, and CNN contributor Will Cain, I think he has like, 17. Just kidding. I'm joking.
Nah. 9 nieces, 4 nephews. That's it.
So listen, before we get started, I want to play some back and forth between Michele Bachmann and Newt Gingrich. Take a listen.
Frankly, I am shocked listening to the former Speaker of the House when the Speaker had his hand out and he was taking $1.6 million to influence senior Republicans to keep the scam going in Washington, D.C. That's absolutely wrong.
The easiest answer is that's just not true. What she just said is factually not true. I never lobbied under any circumstance, and I think sometimes people ought to have facts before they make wild allegations.
After the debate that we had last week, PolitiFact came out and said that everything that I said was true. And the evidence is that Speaker Gingrich took $1.6 million. You don't need to be within the technical definition of being a lobbyist to still be influence peddling with senior Republicans in Washington, D.C. to get them to do your bidding.
All right, so Roland, Gingrich Gingrich still having trouble answering the Freddie Mac question here. Lobbyist, paid consultant. Is it semantics? And I think, you know, he's he was condescending, I think, to Michele Bachmann. Go on.
Well, we have an old saying called fever in the funk house. Man, she was putting it on him.
Yeah, she was.
Look, Don, the reality is Bachmann, absolutely. Bachmann was absolutely on it. The problem for her, though, is that she said so many things in past debates that was false. And even that PolitiFact claim, PolitiFact came right back and said she was wrong about that. But she's absolutely right. Newt Gingrich can dance around this all day. But the fact of the matter is, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, they hired Republicans and Democrats, put them on the payroll so they can be able to keep doing what they were doing in Congress. And so when he wants to say, oh, no, I wasn't lobbying, she nailed it. You were there for influence. And I was surprised that Romney and Perry was not as aggressive in nailing Newt Gingrich. And so he gave a long-winded answer. He has some issues on this particular issue. It's a winner for her.
All right, so, well, I know you want to get in on this. I want to ask you another question, but it seems like you want to get in on this. What do you want to say?
Well, I was going to say, first of all, on the Romney strategy, it's working out for Romney, I think, Roland. He's having his surrogates attack Newt Gingrich, essentially, from Michele Bachmann to Ron Paul. He comes off looking like the nice guy while these people attack Newt Gingrich. It's perfect as a sheer strategy standpoint. More importantly, Don, let me say this. One of the central tenets of conservatism of the Republican Party ought to be about free markets, and this represents the problem with Newt Gingrich. Free markets, the operative word there is free. When you're involved in cronyism, whether or not we call it lobbying, advocating, whatever, when you're involved in taking money from a government-sponsored enterprise, you are not playing in the world of free markets. Posit this against Mitt Romney, who was asked, what's the next industry of the future? And he said, I don't know. Free markets will answer that. That is the difference we have to look at.
I want to go on here because there was also an interesting back and forth with Ron Paul, especially talking about wars and bringing our troops home. Well, I want to ask you, listen, Ron Paul said that we can't treat Iran like a rock. Will that be a tough sell to conservatives, especially? Go ahead.
Undoubtedly. I mean, clearly it's going to be a tough sell to conservatives. If you get on any conservative website today, from National Review to Daily Caller, if you open up any newspaper, from Wall Street Journal to Washington Post, you'll see conservatives saying Ron Paul is very good, but, big comma, big capital letters, but. They say he comes off as an isolationist. He says they say he assesses blame to the United States for the terrorist attacks we've endured, and that he doesn't want to get involved in any of these potential threats to our country. Listen, I'm not telling you whether or not he is an isolationist. I'm not passing judgment. I'm answering your question about how he's coming off to conservatives. And yeah, it probably is a long-term problem.
When I said go ahead, Roland,
these conservatives don't want to hear the truth.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Let me pose this question to you, because that's what I was going to, when I said go ahead to Will here, I was going to ask him if you think this, what Ron Paul is saying, if it plays to independents and it plays well to young people, especially college campuses and that sort of thing, might it win over some independent voters, Roland?
He's playing well to people who actually know how to read and pay attention. What Congressman Ron Paul is saying is the United States cannot continue to meddle in somebody else's foreign affairs and don't think it's somehow going to impact us later. Remember, you had Rick Santorum reference Iran last night saying they went to war with us in 1979. But Republicans don't want to mention 1954 when we helped overthrow the Iranian government and put in the Shah of Iran. What Ron Paul is saying, stop the warmongering. It was amazing to hear Republican candidates say we might want to try diplomacy. Yeah. Look, they don't want to hear that stuff from Ron Paul, but I'm going to tell you right now, when you spend $800 billion in Iraq fighting a war we should not have been in, we're still in Afghanistan, somebody is speaking some sense to say you can't keep blowing stuff up and somehow think that's going to fix the problem.
All right. Thank you, Roland. Thank you, Will. Can you imagine? Roland talked most of the time, Will. It's shocking, isn't it?
Well, if you...
He called me Robin to his Batman. Let me put it this way. One of us is Batman and one of us is Joker. I'll let the audience decide.
Oh, actually, no. Actually, one of us is Batman and you're Robin. Nice
All
tights.
in good fun. Thanks, Will Cain and Roland Martin. That is fair game for today.